Mayor Mike, well, welcome back to Mayor's Monday. Another trip down here to Stevens Point, and as I'm driving into town on Division Street, we're seeing a lot of redevelopment. Actually, in fact, your Kmart location is just
Right.
closed, but you guys are fortunate. You've already got some plans teed up for it.
Right, and we do. There's a couple of different locations actually on that North Division Street corridor. The most obvious one, of course, is Kmart, being that they just closed last week. They didn't own their property, which is a little bit unique. Most people thought Kmart owned it, but they didn't. It was owned by someone else, and the property owner has another development kind of teed up and ready to go. We've already introduced it to council and got some feedback there from public participants. But right now, that area is really just a big, expansive parking lot and then a Kmart building in the back. So they're going to repurpose that and redevelop it to something more useful. You won't have that big, expansive asphalt. They're looking at a housing project and then potentially some retail development near the Division Street corridor. We've also got a property across the street that could use some redevelopment. We're working with a developer on that. And then further south on the Cooper Motor site, which has been vacant for a couple of years now, we're getting some movement on there. So the city's been really hard at work trying to redevelop that North Division Street corridor, and it's starting to pay off.
And what do you see that the public wants most in that area? Is it the housing? Is it the retail development?
Well, it's a little bit of everything. So housing, as you know, we conducted a housing study back in 2015 that showed some of the needs, some of the shortfalls, I suppose, of our community in relationship to housing. So we're taking that to heart, and that in part plays into the housing development. That study is available to anyone who wants it. So if we have developers that are looking to build housing, this will give them a direction as to what type of housing, whether it's apartments or condos or single family, multifamily units, those sorts of things. And then the retail. As you know, Division Street, we often joke that division is kind of the wrong word for it because it kind of divides the university and the city. We want to shorten that, and we don't want that division. So having retail development closer, making it walkable, closer to the street for the businesses, I think has been one of the goals of the city in recent years. And I think all of the projects that we have in the works are going to address that. So you're going to get a little office, you're going to get a little retail, you're going to get a little housing, really making it a neighborhood.
Yeah, the mixed use development, I think, is kind of the buzzword that gets thrown around
Yeah,
quite
a lot
a
of
bit.
people use mixed use.
Yeah. And see, do you see that that's what Stevens Point wants and what the people need here? They can have the apartment on the top, you can have an office on
Sure.
the bottom. So
We do, and our main street is filled with that. We've got a lot of retail on the bottom and apartments up on the second floor, and that has worked out real well because prior to 10 years ago or so, those upstairs levels were just unutilized or underutilized. Maybe they were just storage, but repurposing those and allowing people to live up there has really been a boon to the downtown area. And that's really what, like I said, what people are looking for is they want to be able to walk or bike or travel at least a short distance to all of the things that they want. It really brings back that neighborhood feel when you had neighborhood grocery stores and neighborhood gas stations and things like that. Having something like that in that Division Street corridor is going to create another neighborhood atmosphere.
and speaking, of course, this is coming from the loss of something else, the loss of a Kmart store. You're losing jobs, you're losing retail development. We're experiencing that in Wausau too. Our Yonkers is going to close. That's going to be
Right.
60 some jobs. But you have to feel good knowing you have this plan to bring some jobs back to that area that they won't be lost very long.
Right, and that's really speaks to being proactive. We've got a proactive council, we've got a proactive community, proactive community development department. Our director Ostrowski has been instrumental in negotiating with a lot of these developers, working hard to show them all of the cool things that Stevens Point has to offer, and trying to get things in the pipeline much sooner so council can evaluate it, provide input, and that makes a better project all around.
What other developments do you have, or are you hoping to have sometime in 2018? here?
Well, we've got a few things teed up. I can tell you that our February meetings are going to have some of that North Division Street development that we talked about. Kmart's redevelopment plan should be probably in the April meeting, but we've definitely got one that I expect to see in February. There's some other developments that we've got going on in different areas of town too, but of course I can't talk about any of those
Right.
because of confidentiality.
Right, absolutely. When you're pitching Stevens Point to these developers, as you have to do, you're a cheerleader
do.
for this city. What is the first thing that you tell them? Does you tell them it's a college town, that you have a university, a thriving university? Is it the retail redevelopment options available? What is the first thing that really gets them hooked about Stevens Point?
Well, and you touched on something very good. We need to market ourselves. We can't just sit back on our laurels and wait for somebody to bring us a development. We have to be out there pitching the city. Honestly, there are so many great things that go on in the community that most people don't know about. My job is relatively easy. All I have to do is inform these people about things that are already going on. I don't have to make promises of something we're going to do in the future. We're already doing these things. And the fact that we have a very well-educated workforce with university and Mid-State Technical College, we're starting students out in high school. Some of our third graders are doing coding already. And that's a big thing for software developers and technology companies to know that we really focus on that. In this day and age, people can kind of pick and choose where they want to live. Years ago, we used to move somewhere for a job, but now with technology, you can almost work from anywhere. So the next criteria, I suppose, for attracting that talent and retaining them is what can you do when you're not working? And Stevens Point has a ton of things from our thriving arts culture. I mean, we're the 27,000 people. We have our own symphony orchestra, and that's in addition to our city band. And we have the Levitt Amp Music Festival, so we've got live music basically Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of every week during the summer. There's something to do, whether it's a festival or the live music. We've got a sculpture park. We've got one of the best park systems, in my opinion, in central Wisconsin. We're right on the river, so we've got recreational opportunities there. We are literally a couple minutes drive from public land where you can go out and hike and bird watch, any sort of recreational activity you want to do. We've got it right here and probably within a 10-minute drive. So those are the things that I inform people of and tell developers. They want to know that there's going to be a decent workforce here. They want to know that there's going to be adequate housing for their employees. They want to know that when they build their facility, that they're going to actually become part of that community. So while I'm bragging about it, it's not really a tough sell. You just got to inform people of all the things that are going on, and most of the time they're very impressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those other things that's going to be going on here, you guys are actually going to be featured on a public TV special coming up here too. That's another piece of good publicity for the city.
Yeah, we're real excited about that. So PBS has a TV show called Around the Corner with John McGivern. And my mother-in-law's always been a big fan, and she says, boy, if you ever run into that guy, you should try and get on there. Well, lo and behold, I ran into him at League of Municipalities annual conference, and I talked to John, and I said, John, you need to come to Stevens Point. We've got a lot of cool stuff going on. I don't know how much I did the selling, but they got us on their agenda, and they were here last summer recording the TV show. For those people who are listening or watching that don't know, John goes to different communities and talks about all the cool things to work, live, and play in whatever community that is. And so they covered probably a dozen of the more significant aspects of Stevens Point. There was a lot, in my opinion, that gets left out, but it's only a half-hour show. We are being featured on February 22nd. That's the first air date of the Stevens Point episode. However, locally, we're having a kind of a red carpet premiere ahead of time on February 20th at Century Theater. That's going to be free and open to the public. John and his crew will be there to do a live question and answer session afterwards. And one of the things that I'm really excited about seeing is at the end of every show, he gives the mayor 30 seconds to talk about why your community is the best place to work, live, and play. And, everybody kind of hashes over the same thing. We're a great community. We do this, we do that. What I did is I put it out to the citizens, and I don't think most of them know that, but back in July, I put it out on social media asking what their favorite things about Stevens Point were. And I compiled that list. And my 30 seconds, as John said, and I'm paraphrasing John, we've never done anything like that before. He was laughing, his producer was laughing. So we added a little bit of comedy relief, I suppose, in there, and something that they haven't done before on the show. So I encourage people to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And my question is, being a craft beer guy myself, how much time did you spend at the Point Brewing Company?
Craft beer is one of the big things about Central Wisconsin that a lot of people like. We have Craft Collective, which is actually coordinated by the Convention and Visitors Bureau, so you can tour the distilleries, the wineries, and the various breweries that we have here. There's some mention.
There's some mention.
There's some mention.
I'll have to look forward to that. I haven't had much from Wisconsin since I've been here.
Oh,
but
really?
I'm definitely looking forward to
You're
Point.
missing out. Central Waters just had their 20th anniversary party. And I remember I was around when Central Waters started up, and now they're 20 years old already, hugely successful. Oso Brewing. Oso Brewing is going to be building a new facility in Stevens Point, groundbreaking in 2018. A new 20-acre facility with their own vineyards and a disc golf course and a kickball field and a social room, plus the brewery. It's going to be fabulous.
Absolutely. We'll have to reserve another one of these episodes.
Maybe we'll
just
do
to
a
talk
remote
about-
episode,
just
you
to
and I.
Yeah, just to talk about some craft beer and all the great stuff going on here.
Sure.
In Stevens Point. One more before we let you go. I've actually just noticed I've gotten a lot of emails from the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point just about fine arts events that they're bringing into town. How often do you take those in, and how much does that add to your community?
It's instrumental. Seriously, the university adds so much diversity and culture here. We would not be the same community without them. Just last weekend, we had Arts Bash. And there's always so many things going on. The Noel Fine Arts Center has its own theater, so there's plays that go on there, and the musicals. You have musicians that play, and because of the university, we have a pretty thriving live music nightlife in Stevens Point too.
Anything else that you'd like to add, Mr. Mayor?
No, but I really like your idea of maybe malted Mondays with the mayor.
We'll see what I'll run it by the boss. We'll see what we can do.
All right, it's only for work.
Only for work, exactly.
Thanks.